I think one of the things that has been useful for us, which we did at the very beginning of our relationship when I was struggling with the stepmom role, was finding a therapist that helped us to talk about things and to learn how to talk to each other about things when these things come up.
Hello and welcome to Separate Bathrooms. We would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land, and pay our respects to elders both past and present. My name's Daddo.
I'm Daddo.
And our guests today, we've met briefly.
Yes. They did remember, actually.
Scott didn't remember.
Did he remember?
No. He said, nice to meet you.
Okay, yeah.
So we were at a market on the northern beaches of Sydney.
Yep.
You knew about the shop.
I did. I followed this particular, it's called the Good Farm Shop on Instagram, and I liked the way they were preparing their meats in a very kind, generative, conscious way. And I saw that this couple were going to be selling their food at an organic market, and I was like, let's go check out the market and see if we can pick something up from them. So
yeah, and it turns out that I'd met Matilda many years before when I was 18, 19, living at Whale Beach in Sydney when first moving up from Melbourne, and Brian Brown and his wife Rachel Ward lived down the road, and Matilda is one of their children. And I remember seeing them when they were little kids, and they had eye patches on their eyes.
I know, you love that story.
I do love it because it was just so... I'd never seen anything like it, but it was to correct a visual issue.
Matilda Brown, she's a writer, she's an actress, she's a director, and now she's the co-owner of organic and 100% raised ready meal company called The Good Farm Shop.
Her partner is former My Kitchen Rules contestant Scott Gooding. Together they have a son, Zan, and a daughter, Anouk. Scott's got a son, Tashi. Her partner is former My Kitchen Rules contestant Scott Gooding, and together they parent 3 kids, Tashi, Zan, and daughter, Anouk.
And first and foremost, he says that he's a father and a husband, but he's also a holistic nutritionist and a performance coach. He's actually published 9 books.
Incredible.
And together, as we said, with Matilda, have co-founded the Good Farm Shop. So let's bring them both into the bathroom and talk all about their story.
Welcome, Matilda and Scott, to the bathroom. It's a relationship podcast, guys.
Yeah.
So tell us the story. How did you meet?
Oh, and straight away. Love at first sight.
Straight up. Yeah, was it love at first sight?
Apparently not.
Oh, do
Maybe
tell.
for one of us.
Yeah.
Do you
Let's dive in.
do you want to take this, babe, or do you want me to begin? I feel like I always hog, so you
I get the sense that this is an honesty podcast, right?
It's a safe place.
It's a safe place.
It's a safe place.
It's just us four.
It's just us four. No one else is going to hear it.
Well, the truth of the matter is that I met Till. My eyes first met Till via my ex-girlfriend. So I'd been broken up for about 6 months. I walked into a cafe. My ex-girlfriend was in there. We were still on reasonable terms. She said, come and meet my friends. And there was 4 girls sat next to each other. And she ran down the line, and the end girl was Till. I remember thinking, holy shit, what was that?
Yeah.
But out of respect, I couldn't say to my ex-girlfriend at the time, like, who's that? Could I have a number, sort of thing. So I was like, said to myself, I'll just have to wait 6 months for that until I can ask my ex-girlfriend who that girl was. Anyway, 6 months passed.
You had to wait a further 6 months. Do you put that time frame on there?
Mentally, yeah. I was like,
right.
I lodged it.
Respectful.
Very respectful.
Yeah. But anyway, the 6 months came and went, and I kind of forgot all about it.
It's the first time I'm hearing
But we both lived in the same suburb, and we would see each other, randomly around the streets. And then probably about 4 years, so the 6 months turned into 4 years.
Oh, wow.
That's a long 6 months.
I'm trying hard not to jump in, but
I know.
continue.
You're doing really well.
You're doing really well.
Really?
This is the longest you've been silent since I've known you. And so...
How long ago was this, by the way?
So this was...
This was ages
2000 and...
Late.
Oh... Well, I think we got together in 2017.
Oh, there you go.
But this was 6 years prior.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah, right. Yeah.
So,
So then I waited probably 4 years. So listeners have probably already drifted off now. But
Come back, listener. Come back.
And then I asked her. We have a mutual friend, not the ex-girlfriend, but another mutual friend. I messaged her and said, "What do you think Matilda's response would be if I asked her out for coffee?" And she just wrote, "No."
Why? What was her reasoning?
So half out of wanting to have a coffee with Till, and half out of trying to give the middle finger to this friend to prove her wrong.
Yeah.
I said to Till, I messaged Till and said, "I've asked our mutual friend if you'd go out for a coffee. She said no, so my expectation is low.
Yeah.
But would you like a coffee?" And she said no.
but this is where I'll take over.
Was it no out of protection because you're a beast, or no because she's just not going to find...
Till's going to tell us.
All right, come on. Okay.
She'll probably go back to the cafe scenario.
Okay, let's go, Till. Your turn now.
Oh gosh, okay. Cafe scenario was very different for me. I knew that was her ex. I won't name names, just out of their whatever
Respect. For
respect.
them.
Yeah. And I knew, so I'd seen him around. I knew what Scott looked like, and he had a haircut that was ridiculous.
2017.
I call it the cockatoo haircut.
Okay.
It's in our wedding speech. I couldn't get past it. I couldn't see him. He had shaved sides, and then this, like, his hair's so thick. It doesn't, like, if it's, like, it just stands up. So it's just this, like, mohawk.
Yeah.
But anyway, I
Very
wasn't
AFL.
a fan. And he had this, like, these long, those singlets that, like, kind of go all the way down.
Yes.
It's like, and they got, like, they're just not...
Oh, is that the ones with the big armpits?
The big arm thing,
Because you
yeah.
thought
Guys,
your
and
guns were going to
everyone
get
in
bigger,
Bondi-
so you get ready for that? That's the theory behind those. One day they'll fit it.
Yeah,
It felt like every guy in Bondi was wearing these singlets at a certain point, and Scott was one of them, and he had tats all down his arms, and I sort of looked at him and I was like, wanker. Just looked like a wanker. So I didn't really think anything else of him. Didn't really know much about him from his ex-girlfriend. But, I met him and I was like, oh yeah, hey, how you going? And then continued on with my breakfast. So it was a very different first encounter. And then when he messaged me 4 years later, he was the last... I didn't even know we were Facebook friends. I'd obviously just gone like, accept. And so...
You accepted the cocky. The tattooed cocky.
A wanker.
Oh, yeah, the wanker. All right, he can be right.
I don't think I
Say yeah.
I really genuinely was like, oh, I didn't even know Scott and I were friends on Facebook. That's weird.
Meanwhile, Scott's waited
but
4.5 years for this one coffee date.
I remember where I was as well. I was
Fake
on a
profile.
walk at the back of Marrickville, like walking along, my phone went ping. And I remember thinking, that's actually really gutsy. Like, I really liked his message saying, like, and, your friend said no, but I'm asking anyway, would you like to have a coffee? And I was actually seeing someone at the time that I thought would be my husband. Like, I just started seeing that person, but I was like at that age where I was really ready to meet the person. Had been at that age since I was about 21, to be honest. So, like...
Yeah.
And I genuinely was like, oh my God, no, this is the guy. Turns out that wasn't the guy, obviously. But I wrote back to Scott and said, I've just started seeing someone. But, so no, because I want to give this a go, but thanks anyway. And his reply was like really sweet. It was just, I wish you all the best. It wasn't like, I'd had someone else, had someone else ask me that before, and I'd said no, and they're like, I wasn't asking for a date, it was just a friend thing.
Yeah.
Protection.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It was like, all the best, and where does the guy live?
I've heard bad things about him, but that's fine.
So at that point I was like, oh, it actually doesn't really sound like much of a wanker. But anyway, the hairstyle remains. So, but cut to 9 months later, we'd sort of kept in touch. I was still going back and forth from LA. So after that I'd gone to LA for a trip, and in LA, Scott would occasionally message me.
Oh, so you kept at it even though you knew old mate was in the background. You were like, oh, well, I'll just be...
Well, it does sound like that now.
It does a bit.
Yeah.
But that,
No.
No?
I guess there was the physical attraction, no question. but there was an allure to the type of person Teal was or is through her writings on Instagram. So I was like, I'd be very happy if I got a friendship out of this.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah, so he would occasionally message me just like, hey, how you going? You know, what's happening in LA? And I would respond. And I guess that maybe happened, not very often, but a couple of times over the 9 months. Over the 9 months that we then reconnected. And one of the things that he said was, when you get back from LA, could I interview you on my podcast? And I was like, and he's in, you know, the health world.
Yeah.
And I got the sense that his podcast was all health people. And I was like, yeah, but, you know, I'm an actress. Like, I'm not in the health world. But is that a bit weird? And you know, and he said, no, I've just started sort of like branching out. Anyway, whatever. I said yes. I got back to Sydney, and I was at the point I had taken over scripts to go and sell, to sell them over there. I'd gotten really close to landing it. And it hadn't happened, and I'd come back to Australia feeling really defeated. I'd also had my heart broken from that guy.
Was he an Australian or
He was an Australian
actor, right?
No.
Actor, right?
No, writer.
Okay.
Lured me in with his words.
Oh,
yes.
Cyrano.
And so that hadn't. So I'd come back in this like, just feeling so defeated, heartbroken, exhausted from going back and forth to LA for so many years. And I was basically at the end, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm over it. And kind of fallen into like a heap. But we'd sort of locked in this podcast for like a couple of days after I'd gotten back, or maybe like a week. And I'd gone to this kinesiologist. I sort of said to her, I was like, I just want to know when I'm going to meet the guy. I just really want to know when I'm going to meet the guy. You know, like I have this reserve sign on my bed now. Like I'm not going to let anyone else in unless it's the guy that I'm going to have my babies with and stuff. And she was like, well, and she was like a kinesiologist / psychic. And she goes, I'm getting this sk thing coming in. I'm getting like a k. She said k, like
Cockatoo.
a k. It sounds so funny now because it could be so irrelevant, really. But
skirt's pretty vague.
Yeah, it is. But she was like, do you know any like k sounding? Like I'm getting this, and I was like, oh, whatever. She was like, but I'm getting told that you're going to be a stepmom. And she was like, do you know any people with like a k kind of thing who's got a kid? And I was like, oh, I know this guy called Scott, and he's got a kid, but like he's not the guy. Don't tell me that. Like I really couldn't see him as a potential. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know any other guy, because she said, I'm getting told that you already know him. And I was like, oh, that's disappointing.
This is so cool. I love this story.
Anyway, I get back, my leg like seizes up on the way home, and then message pops up from Scott going like, you all good to do this podcast tomorrow? And I was like, oh, I'm really not. Like I really wanted to write back going, I really cannot be bothered to do this podcast. I just want to crawl into a ball and hide and watch bad reality TV. But I felt really like I didn't want to let him down. Like I felt like I'd let this guy down a few times and I just didn't want to do it again. And so I was like, yep, cool. Yep, come on over. We'll do the podcast. And so anyway, he
had he had his
comes
haircut
over.
by then?
No, he still had the haircut. But weirdly, because she had like planted this seed in my head,
Skir.
I started like looking, with the kid.
Skir with
and
kid.
you knew he had a child at this
I
point.
knew he had a kid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I knew he had a kid. He like came to the door, and I sort of looked at him, and I was like, oh, he's tall and like. God, he's got a good like figure on him. Like I just sort of was like, man, I hadn't noticed that before. Or maybe I had, but anyway. I kept like kind of like looking at him, just trying to work out like what am I not attracted to with this guy aside from the haircut? Like if we just got rid of that haircut, could this guy be?
Just
could I be
frame it
attracted to
as-
this person? Yeah.
Zoom in a bit.
And I really was sort of trying to work it out. Anyway, we sat down and we had the podcast and we talked. And we laughed, and we had a really nice chat, and I felt really comfortable around him. And by the end of it, I was like, hey, he's not a wanker at all. He's like opposite of a wanker. I guess you're not who I sort of thought that you should be based on what you looked like.
Right.
With these tats and this kind of out there haircut and stuff.
Interesting.
So I guess all my preconceived ideas of what he should be like just dissolved in that conversation. We had like a really good chat, and then after the podcast we stood around chatting for a while, and sort of he opened up to me a little bit about his family, and then I remember sort of like kind of glancing at him in the hallway as he was sort of like leaning on my doorway, and I was like, am I mad? I've never seen someone look so good in jeans before. He's got like these beautiful like shoulders, and he's strong. And I was like, and he's got beautiful eyes, lovely. Like, what is my problem? I'm just basing this on a stupid haircut. Anyway, I guess in that moment, even though
you pulled out the clippers and cut his hair off.
I didn't fully like have that epiphany. Like, it's easy to say that in retrospect, but that clearly was going on in my head because he walked out the door, and all I remember thinking is, I want to see that person again. Like, I want to hang out with him again. I thought, he'll probably ask me out again. That's what I thought. I was like, we had a nice time. He'll probably get the gist that potentially, there's room to explore it. And he didn't ask me out again. He didn't message me.
And why didn't you?
Oh, because of that history of asking.
Yeah.
She said no. And I don't even know whether I knew that you were single when we met for the podcast.
No.
But I would never ask anyone out again.
After the big no?
What?
Or,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
never
she's also
such a-
said I'm with someone.
Yeah, you're
so,
right.
Yeah, and there's only 9 months later, so that sort of thing.
Fast forward a little bit then.
Yeah.
You've done the podcast. You've decided not to pursue any romance. So then how did the actual coming together happen?
I said, I've got to go and feed my dad's cat. Do you want to come and have fish and chips with me?
Which I took as code, right? Like,
That is
what does
so
that
romantic.
mean?
Yeah,
I
what
was
is
asking
it?
all my
A cat?
flatmates, like, is there a cat? Like,
Got to
what does
feed a
it
cat.
mean? What does feed the cat mean? Googling that.
I was,
Oh dear!
at this
Don't
point,
go down that road.
I still wasn't sure.
That's awesome.
It's a typical thing for me. I'll just jump in the deep end. Let's have dinner with this guy, see if there's anything there.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, it was a really bad date. We sat in the car at the end of Balmain, like drove down to the bottom. It was pouring with rain, and we had really bad food. And we talked about our exes. We basically told the story of like who we'd just broken up with.
Yeah.
And so it was like just so not.
Yeah,
Not-
but that's method in the madness, though, isn't it? Because you're actually clearing the decks, going, okay, this is where I'm at. I've got this is the ex. That was crap or not.
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean,
and get that conversation out of the way in the rain.
yeah, I don't think there was
Yeah.
any. There certainly wasn't like a strategy to it, but that was just what unfolded. We, obviously that was a very recent thing that had happened to me, so I was pretty open and happy to share it. And and I guess he just followed suit and told me that his ex, and then it sort of just got, literally, I had texted my family a photo of him. We have a group chat, and I texted them a photo of him and said, I'm going on a date with this guy tonight. And my mum wrote back, too many tats. He must have had his arms out in the photo. Too many tats, no, or something like that.
No, it was too many tats. And what about the hair?
Oh, yeah.
See you like mother, like daughter.
Yeah.
Totally.
And what about the old man? What did Dad say?
He wrote, looks like a nice guy.
Yeah.
Ah,
Right.
there you go.
What a legend.
Yeah.
There you go.
And then my sister wrote, great, let us know how it goes. And my brother wrote back, looks like a typical Bondi wanker.
Okay. So there's a real division.
There was a real... So anyway, I got back from the date. Scott dropped me off. I went and I texted them and I said, nice guy, not my husband. But then Scott messaged me literally 5 minutes after he dropped me off. I don't think he'd even left, turned the car on yet. And he sent me a message saying, had a really nice night. He was going away like the next week. He's like, would love to see you for a coffee before I leave. And I guess because I had been with a guy who was like literally opposite of that, we'd go out and then 4 days, I'd expect maybe he'd text me, then didn't message me for like 2 weeks later or something, just really was, I needed to be shown the asshole to see how valuable that was when
Right.
someone wasn't playing games.
Yep.
That something I just wrote back and was like, yeah, great, would love to. But it was like my hands were doing I was like, no, I don't want to see you. Yes, I'd like to see you. Like, it was like my body was telling me what to do, but my mind was like shutting it down.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
But also, didn't you have a dream that night? sorry, going back a couple of...
We're going back a bit, babe.
No, the dream after the podcast, you dreamt that night or something about...
No, the day before we had a podcast, the day before Scott came round, I didn't know that he has a massive octopus tattooed on his chest. I didn't know that he had that, but the day after I came back from the kinesiologist, I wrote an Instagram post, and it was just me laying on the couch. It was like a selfie of me laying on the couch, and it was a very honest thing about how I just wanted to find a guy with octopus arms to wrap his arms around me. That was the post that I had written the day before he came round.
I've got an octopus on my chest and one on my arm. So I was like,
really
should
weird.
I be reading between the lines?
So I know, he thought it was... I was like, I didn't know until like the first night we got together and he took his shirt off that he had an octopus on him.
Very specific.
He actually got it a couple of days before he read your text.
And a little dolphin on my bum.
Anyway, back to... I've lost my place now.
Sorry.
Yes,
so he's messaged you for coffee and you've gone, my head's gone no, but my heart's gone and my finger's gone yes.
Yeah. And then so we went out for coffee the day before he left, and it was a much better day.
Yeah, great.
I just kind of started seeing him in this other way, and we laughed heaps. I was like kind of giddy, like I was just like a little schoolgirl. I just found, I don't know, like it was just like so. Anyway, it was a quick coffee, but I just remember thinking, I can't wait for this guy to get back from his trip so we can hang out again. And really, like, you know, that's where it sort of changed. We didn't stop talking. He went away. We talked every single day. We texted nonstop. Poor guy that he was on the trip with just didn't get a look in. It was like I was on the trip with him.
Pretty much.
And then he came back, and I still wasn't... He invited me while he was away to go to Melbourne with him for like this overnight thing that you'd been gifted or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's a big jump from like...
Caffeine and coffee.
To
coffee and conversation to an
overnight
overnighter in Melbourne.
Yeah.
No escape.
Yeah. But regardless, I said yes. And thank God when he arrived back and I saw him, I was like, no, he's... Yep, still attracted to him. That's good. Like it was just... Yeah, it was a funny beginning to our relationship. It took a while for... But then... You know, for me to know, but then 4 months into it, I was like ready for babies.
This is it, yeah.
I knew.
Listen, we want to get onto because we're so excited to talk to you about your co-creation. I mean, obviously your co-creation is your kids as well, but the Good Farm.
Yeah.
So tell us how that came about.
So it started off as a cow share scheme, which might sound odd, but it's like we had these beautiful specimens on Matilda's mum and dad's property up north that we knew that was they were living the best cow life that they could.
Okay.
Slight backstory is that, I've worked in sort of health and fitness and nutrition since 2005. Less fitness as time went on, more nutrition, more food, more cooking. And there was always a nod to provenance. So I wrote my first book in 2013. And in that, there's a bunch of recipes, but there was sort of a nod to like, we need to, not need, like that sounds like finger pointing, but wouldn't it be great, consider where our food comes from.
Yep.
Whatever it is, whether it's a carrot or a rump steak. And so I guess for me, that intensified and amplified as time went on, where now, I'd go without eggs if my only choice was caged eggs. There's and obviously for all of us, we have to acknowledge accessibility to high provenance foods.
Yeah.
Not all of us have access and budget, but for me and us, it's a priority.
Yeah.
Like we don't do certain things so we can have money to kind of spend on, high provenance foods. And so in our local area, being the Northern Beaches, there wasn't anywhere that we could get that degree of provenance in our beef, let's say.
Yeah.
And so we were like, well, we know that there's these cows having the best life, one shitty afternoon, but apart from that, walking around on beautiful pastures, beautiful lush grass, and not only that, they're doing, a great thing in the sense that they're sequestering carbon. So how do we get one of those cows into our fridge? We literally wrote an email to friends, family, small network, probably like 50 people. There's these cows up north living the best life. Would anyone consider going in on a,
But regenerative farming,
up
not just living the best life, regenerative farming was really a big part of it, because it's really not a term that a lot of people know about.
Yeah.
People understand organic, but regen is a pretty new concept for people, and most people would go, what's regenerative farming? So there was a bit of a, this is how regenerative farming works. This is why it's really good for the environment. This is why we want to get the cow from this paddock. And, so just wanted to continue.
It's embryonic in terms of...
Yeah, it's only new.
Yeah.
It's pretty new. Yeah. And it takes, you've got to... So you get these guys to come in and they test your moisture content in your soil, more
Carbon
importantly,
content.
your carbon content. And then you've got to retest, I think it's maybe a year later. Yeah. So there's a lag, right? So if someone's trying to do right by their land and get this verification, there's at least, 12 months, 18 months before you get your stamp. So it's not to say it's not coming, it's coming.
Yep.
But it's like, is it in their best interest as a farmer to go down the line of spending X on a fee to get this stamp? Like, what's the cost benefit?
Some
of
people
that?
like proof, though, don't they? They need
sure.
to see the thing and go,
Totally.
okay, because otherwise it's just taking your word for it, which is, but at the same time, people want.
I guess
proof
for them, it's like, what's the end point? What's the end point for my cattle?
Because most of those farms, they wouldn't go straight from that farm to a supermarket. They'd go to an abattoir, and then they would just be the same as every other piece of every other cow that comes. There's you can't get cut up, put on a crate, and go off to butcher shop. So can't put a stamp on a fillet steak. It's really hard to. So unless you're selling direct to someone like what we were, which was in the end what we became, which was an online butchery where we were sourcing from 6 different regenerative farms, each one a different species. You can't track your meat. Like Feather and Bone do it. They've got a couple of shops in Sydney, and they buy whole animals. So you have to buy whole animals from farms. Right. And it's really expensive. That's why butcher shops don't do it, because it's really hard economically to make it work. And in the end, that's what didn't work for us. We couldn't make it a viable business doing it that way. And so we pivoted the business to... You guys saw us at the markets. We had ready meals there. Yeah. Because with the leftover, fillets fly out the door, steaks fly out the door, but you're left with a lot of, when you buy a whole animal, you're left with a lot of chuck and a lot of mince, and you have to find something to do with that. So we were making meals from them. We were making stroganoff and ragu and massamum curry and like all these things that Scott can cook because he's a great cook, and selling them as ready meals at the markets. And those we could make money on. We knew, we were like, there's a value add to this that's not on a piece of steak. You can only sell a piece of steak for so much.
Yep.
And so we went to England, and in England, there's so much, in the UK, they're so much far ahead than we are when it comes to food provenance. They already are there's already burger shops on the street with regenerative patties.
Isn't
they're
great?
Wow.
It's really great. So they got rid of the mad cow and fixed it up.
It's probably cleaned it right up.
And there's so many small farms that are shouting out about this, and they have really big followers on Instagram. People are getting it, and we were really inspired when we went there by, like, you walk into, what's that supermarket we went
Waitrose.
in?
Waitrose, yeah.
And they've got their farmers there, and you really get a sense that supermarket cares about the food and where their meats come from.
But also the quality. So we were looking explicitly at ready meals.
Yeah.
We were sort of in the back of our mind going, this might be the new direction.
Yep.
Let's get rid of the whole body butchering side of it, and let's really sort of knuckle down and expand the ready meal range.
We came back and we were like, I think there's like a new way forward for us, and that was to lose the whole bodies, as Scott said, and stick with the same philosophies like organic ingredients, regeneratively farmed produce from small farms, and just be something like not another ready meal on that we have here, and like there's lots of those, but be a different type that it always puts food provenance first, and animal welfare first, and human health first.
And I read that you had to really try and find the packaging that was going to. It took you.
Yeah. So it's been a funny little like, God, the amount of money you lose just trying. Let's try this.
Yeah.
And then you're like, that doesn't work. Okay.
R&D.
Yeah. Then
running, having your own business is just problem solving.
Yeah.
Like 80% of the time, you're just either putting out fires or think of a way around that obstacle.
Yep.
Like that's all it is.
Yeah.
Really.
You guys are now a partnership. You're creating your business together. There are highs and lows. Just take us through a little bit when things get tough for each of you. How do you prop each other up?
Well, I think the key is don't allow both of you to kind of plummet. So if something's come across the table and it's bad news, so the good news, you can both revel in it and celebrate it. But if something comes across a plate and it's a problem, the shit's hit the fan, like something's not good, only one of you can like really unravel. The other one has to go, no, it's all right, babe. We'll fix it. I'll get on a call. I don't think there's been a time that I can think off the top of my head where you're both crumbling, because then it's, I
think like weirdly that kind of like happens. I don't know if it happens in other relationships, but it does sort of kind of naturally happen that if I'm feeling particularly down about the business on a certain day, it's almost like Scott's like, you kind of like, you go into prop up mode because you're like, we can't lose. No, we got to prop, and then same thing. Like if you're like, it's a weird sort of natural thing that happens in the business. But are you sort of speaking more broadly?
Yeah. I mean, just generally, because I'm curious in a relationship sense with what you're doing and in life, like parenting as well.
Yeah.
How I stuff up. Well, two of our kids have left home now. We've got one left, so it's like, I got one more chance to get it right. But
wow, that makes you sound really great, Dad.
I've done okay.
You stuffed the other two, so they've left.
Yeah,
Is that
they've
what
left.
happened?
They ran out.
It's too late for those guys.
I guess it did. No,
but I mean the pressure of because you've got. I mean, for you guys, you've got the step. Being a stepmom.
Yep.
You've got little ones. And you've got starting a brand new business in a brand new kind of industry. So it's not like you've just stepped into regular, that's a lot of pressure on a marriage. And so that's what I thought you were asking about.
Well,
the
I
pressures
kind
in
of
that
was.
way,
I guess
but-
I'm just still jet lagged and,
I think, to be
I
honest,
mean,
nice cover.
It's sort of tailing off, but there was like at least 2 years where you're kind of in like, you're white knuckling it, right?
Sure.
The kids are they're still in nappies, very dependent. I mean, they still are, but not so much now. One's 4 and one's 2, so we're still kind of in the weeds of it, but it's diminishing. But then, as you say, like layer over a business, and
I don't think there's any. Sorry.
That's right. I'm quite used to it now.
I don't think there's any. I really don't think there's. It was really hard. Like, I think we've just come up to the surface to breathe. Like for me, I think my health has suffered in the last 2 years. Certainly, like I'm someone who will generally jump out of bed and feel very positive, and remain that way a lot. But even I got to the point just where I was like, is this ever gonna let up? Like I
thought there was a problem when she's asking for gin at 9 a.m. in bed,
as she's breastfeeding the youngest.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's not true. But certainly was leaning on my 5 o'clock wines. Like I had to have like a talk to myself at some point and be like, we don't need to have a 5 o'clock wine every night.
Right.
I've curbed that. But
No, but
But you got to go.
was
Sometimes
hard.
you have to go down that road to understand that you don't need it. You know,
I mean,
and you
it
go,
was
yeah, that
definitely
doesn't work. Tried it. No good.
yeah. The
But
2 years has been.
We spoke about this the other day. It's like, I think it's fine if, you know, God, I'm not like advocating people use alcohol as a crutch, but you know, if one glass of wine breaks that intensity and that heightened state that you can't get out of any other way, having one glass of wine, you know, you kind of drop down into it.
You can't.
Well,
Yeah, but that's like kind of are advocating having a glass of wine to chill out then. Like I'm saying for me, like fine, you actually really good at that. I actually got to a point with it where I was like, I need to go on like a detox. I need to like stop this habit that I'm getting into because that was my release. Like I did not drink at all during my 20s. Like it was really rare for me to have a drink. And then the kids came along and I was like,
Yeah, you hardly drank when I met you.
It would hit 5 o'clock and I would be so, with the work and the kids, I would be so wrung out that I really was like, I just was like, can't wait for 5 o'clock so I can have a wine. And I don't think that's a good thing. Certainly for me, like it's not where I want to be with my life. I don't want to have to be relying on a 5 o'clock wine for me to chill out. So I did need to kind of, I have recently, not that recently, but
this morning.
no, like I had to listen to but also I've had some other health things that for ages I was going, it's just being a mum. Like I'm just tired because I'm a mum and I'm just feeling like this because I'm a mum and this is just normal to feel like this. And actually like it wasn't normal. I went and saw someone, I had all these things I had to tend to and sort out that were impacting me on a daily level. So I actually think like I don't like the idea of kind of saying like, oh, well, there's this one thing that I do or this one thing that I do or this one thing that I do, because I don't think there's any, sometimes it's really hard to find the solution when you're you're literally in fight or flight.
Yeah, when you're in the trenches, it's pretty hard to see
it's really hard
Yeah.
to just, to like get out. It's really only like in retrospect sometimes that you can, I think you just need to get through it sometimes. Like it is hard. It is hard. Parenting is really hard.
Yeah, and also, I've been in this situation where I'll be going through a situation where something's come up and it's been really difficult, and I go, "Didn't we get through this? Didn't we already climb this ladder and resolve that?" And I've now come to this idea that there's always going to be something that we're climbing. So it's like just deal with it and go, "Oh, we're at this today."
Yeah.
And from the last time, what did I learn?
Yeah.
Okay, let's apply that. And so if there is the 5 o'clock, drink to help you, well, maybe it did help you in that moment. But then you realise, actually, it fizzed my brain for the rest of the night and I fell asleep. So that's, I'll do something else.
Yeah.
So you apply, to me, it's just like the hits just keep coming.
Yeah.
It's how you respond to the hits that you go, all right, because they're always going to be there.
Yeah, there's never a place in life. There's never going to be an epoch where those things don't keep coming.
No, but that's part of our growth, isn't it? As humans, that we just go, okay, well, it's going to be there. And what did I learn last time? Oh, yeah, do that. I'll put that into play. Let's see how we go. Well, that was a little easier.
Get better at it.
Yeah, and then suddenly, bang, something else.
Yeah.
That old chestnut.
I think one of the things that has been useful for us, which we did at the very beginning of our relationship when I was struggling with the stepmom role, was finding a therapist that helped us to talk about things and to learn how to talk to each other about things when these things come up, so that you're not
huge key
communication. Just there's an understanding, helping someone else, getting someone else to help understand why that person responds that way or why you respond that way, and those things. At that time where we were going to see a therapist for regularly over that period of time where I was like struggling with that role as a stepmom, has given us like those skills for years later.
Yes.
And even though we haven't been back, like I loved the experience. Scott, not so much. He'd always come out and be like, "Oh, I hate these sessions." And I'm like, "Don't you feel really good now, babe?"
I think what it taught us is like we have two very different styles, modes of being. So Teal's more extrovert, I'm more introvert. So when it comes to conflict and problem solving, Teal has a manner in which she just verbalizes on the spot as thoughts come in, like, you know, sing it out. Whereas I, as you've probably noticed in this conversation, like I sort of take my time. I'm more kind of, no offense, but I'm sort of more considered.
Yeah.
And so in a conflict situation, like I'm hearing what she's saying and I'm going, right, how does that make me feel? Like, how do I want to react? But like, is that the right, you know, like I'd rather take an hour out than, you know, slog it out there and then. But that, if you don't know that dynamic, like that's bloody infuriating for her, because she's like, come on, like, what's your, you know, how are you feeling? Let's flesh it out. But I'm like, no, I need to go for a walk, or I need, you know, so having someone facilitate and eke that out of us and make, you know, put it on the table and go, okay, well, we just have different modes. It's kind of been invaluable for us in those periods where you're having a bit of a ding dong.
Because they always happen.
Oh, yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
We, look, what a great chat. I mean, clearly we could sit down for quite a while and have a glass of wine.
It's been
maybe,
lovely. Oh, yeah.
And eat a prepared
Cup of
movie.
tea.
Eat a prepared movie, eat a prepared meal.
Just for the record, I
It's gone.
don't have a problem with alcohol.
It's like, please don't
I
paint
can
this
have
up.
a
Don't make
wine.
it a clickbait headline, for God's sake.
And my caveat was, I'm not advocating drinking booze when you're stressed. It's like there might be a moment when the stress is so intense, so not every day, but like if there's something that brings you down a gear.
Can I tell you, I was playing golf yesterday, and one of my playing partners swung a golf club.
Had to have a golf story. In here.
He swung a golf club in front of the other guy, and it literally missed his head by a bee's dick. It was like the swish of the club. The air went by, and he covered him in dirt because he took a divot as he did it. And we're like, what are you doing? And I tell you what.
But whose fault was that?
Oh, it was the guy swinging the golf club, of
really?
course. It was he just lost his mind and just vagued out and had his time, you know, he forgot where he was in relationship to the other people.
About yourself?
No, I'm not. But I did have a fix. Smooth FM gave me ages ago a hip flask and filled it with scotch for our golf day. So I was like, I think I got a fix for this. So we all took a sip of scotch on tea, and we didn't talk about it.
Was it necessary that
Yes,
you
the
all
rescue remedy,
that
mate.
you all
Rescue
had
remedy.
it?
We all had a sip of scotch, and went, because we were all a bit shocked.
Right.
You know, particularly the dude who was covered in dirt, going, I almost lost my nose right
Oh,
then.
that would have been.
But
really
yeah,
painful.
my point was a well-placed little snippet
my
of little
point.
thing.
Thanks.
It
There
little
you go.
tipple. It helped. You know,
I'm
mind you, I
not going
finished
to
it off
become
for
a
the rest of the
teetotaler
night.
anytime soon. I agree. I think just good to recognize. It was good to recognize for myself. That's all.
Yeah.
Because if you're thinking about that 5 o'clock glass of wine at 10 o'clock in the morning, then I feel like
No, I
that's
wasn't
something-
thinking about it at 10 o'clock in the morning. It was like around the 4 o'clock,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
where
yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
oh, got my glass of wine coming up soon at 5
right.
o'clock.
I feel that way about cups of tea, though. So
I was going to say, I'm a bit like with a cup of tea in the afternoon.
tea, I'm thinking about it now.
Yeah, I should probably change to a cup of tea.
All right,
Anyway.
Can
we've
we?
got to jump in the shower.
I know. Can we do we do a 2-minute shower? You guys will be into this. We conserve water, so we keep our answers short.
Yeah.
I
We
don't
do
have to worry about you.
regenerative showering.
Yeah, I'll keep it short.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. What is your best quality?
Am I answering this for myself?
Correct. You are you. Tilly?
Far out. I'd say my probably lightness of being.
Ooh.
No one's given that answer. Great.
Yeah, that's probably right. Mine is... Oh, it's really hard, isn't it? Even though I had more time than Teal to think. Shit humour.
Shit humour.
No, he does. He's got a good dry sense of humour.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Who do you admire?
Do they have to be like...
Anyone.
Anyone.
Anything.
Or it could also be a type of person. Sometimes people like to talk about, you know, the kind of person that like does this or that, but it could be anyone, dead, alive.
Right, okay. I'm going to say, sorry, Mum, but I'm going to say my dad. I admire my mum a lot as well, but there are qualities about my dad that I really admire. His lightness of being would be one of them. He's really always, he just knows how to handle a situation. He's got a lot of great quality. I admire my dad.
Yeah.
Great.
That one, yeah.
He's a good fella.
I'm going to keep it in the family too. Tashi, my eldest, he has this sort of being about him that he's got a good sense of right and wrong.
Yeah.
And he pulls me up, so it should be the other way around. When I'm being out of line, he'll say, "No, I think you're being whatever, Dad." So I kind of admire him and his mode of being.
Love it. What do you miss when you're not together?
I think I miss like just our fun. Like we have fun and we laugh, and I think we genuinely enjoy each other's company.
Yeah, it's not. There was most of my life I've like sought out time alone, but I don't really do that anymore, and that's sort of changed in the last since I've been with you, really. So it isn't long, an hour or two, which sounds crazy, before I want to be in Till's company again.
It's beautiful. What the world needs more of is
Customers.
That's great. You're going to get some more after this.
Yeah, you will.
I think in this day and age, the world needs. I really miss the time when people could have a difference of opinion, and it didn't. They weren't like you didn't lose a friendship over it. Like I feel like with Instagram and social media, we've lost the art of disagreeing. If it becomes like if you're on that side, then you're not on this side, and so you're not us. It's like
it's good. So it's a form of acceptance, isn't it?
Tolerance.
Acceptance that people are going to be different.
Yeah.
And tolerance.
Yeah.
Your partner in one word.
Wait, Scott.
Oh,
No.
Sorry, you didn't answer.
No,
Sorry.
I would say the same thing. Tolerance.
sorry.
Like we're very quick to, if you're, of a political persuasion, then you must be all these other things, and just there's too black and white.
Yeah.
There's a lot of grey that exists amongst us, and we should be more accepting of that, and not just And we've got to this point because of social media, like dialogue and conversation just is so removed from those worlds that there's a lot of finger pointing and a lot of masquerading, and but we know that, but it's just we could do more tolerance.
True.
Okay. Your partner in one word.
oh, kind.
Oh, that was to me, babe. Is that?
You sound surprised.
Cute.
Cute.
But all the things that come with cute, not just the...
Yeah, and all the things that come with kind.
Guys,
Love it.
It's so funny. Matilda Brown and Scott Gooding, thank you so much for sharing with us your story of the Good Farm, and just thanks so much for coming in and having this conversation. So it's fantastic. It's
Yeah.
been
Very
thanks for having
fun.
me, honey.
Thanks, guys, for having us.
Yeah, no,
Thank
it's
you.
just a pleasure, and
Yeah.
future success for having the business go exactly the way you want it to go.
Thank you.
Thanks. So
Really appreciate it.
yeah,
It's been
thanks
fun.
so much.
Good to see you.
Here they go. Did you enjoy that chat?
That was so interesting.
Oh.
She's so passionate, Tilly. I just love that. You can just hear it in her voice and how much she's like chomping to sort of explain, how much it means, the regenerative farming and I just love Scott as well. What a
Yeah.
steady, kind fellow.
Yeah, good balance between
Yeah,
the two
really
of them.
good balance.
Do you remember when I was away, you sent me, it was a some information. I think it was an Instagram post where I can't remember who it was. If someone in a relationship, if there's 100 points in the relationship or 100 percentile,
Brene Brown.
Goes Brene Brown. So she might be checking in with her partner at a 35. So the partner needs to bring 65.
Yeah.
To make it balance.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what was coming up for me when I was sort of when they were talking and about that, how to make it work. You know, when you can't be both in the doldrums.
Yes.
Someone's sort of got to be propping up the other side of it a bit.
Yes,
You know,
yeah.
and I think we do that pretty well.
I think we do, actually.
And it was,
it's just
so I was thinking of
exhausting
that.
propping you up all the time.
Yeah,
It's getting in trouble.
exactly. I'm a big tall fella, kind of heavy too.
It's true.
Hey, they are. I mean, they're at the front line of something.
They are.
So that takes a lot of courage and strength and inner fortitude.
Patience.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of information on the goodfarmshop.com. They both explain a lot more even about it. And of course they've got the Good Farm Shop Instagram to follow as
Which
well.
you do.
I do.
I do too.
I found them, probably about a year and a half ago because I really I love the idea of treating animals with the utmost kindness.
I remember you told me about the Good Farm Shop when you could buy a whole bunch of different cuts of meat.
Yes.
When they were doing that.
When they were doing that, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now they've done the pivot.
Yeah.
All right. Hope you enjoyed the chat with Matilda and Scott today. We'll be back next week with another episode. If you have any, all the information will be in the show notes. So if you've got any questions about that. And thanks, Al.
Oh, thanks, Cam. And thanks to you for listening.